A billionaire who locked his heart away from every woman, until one night, an innocent sleepwalker shattered his most sacred rule. What happened next shocked everyone in the mansion. Vincent moved through his home like a ghost. His footsteps echoed in empty corridors. His staff bowed when he passed, but they never lingered. They never met his eyes for more than a heartbeat. It wasn't written in any contract, but everyone understood. Distance was expected. Silence was preferred. And above all, certain boundaries were never to be crossed. The most important boundary? His bedroom. No woman was permitted to enter. Not the housekeepers. Not the decorators. Not even the women he dated, back when he still tried to date. If he brought someone home, she stayed in the guest quarters. Always. Without exception. People whispered about it, of course. They said he'd been betrayed once, that someone had stolen from him. Others said he simply hated vulnerability, that letting anyone close felt like handing them a loaded weapon. The truth? Vincent himself might not have known anymore. The rule had become part of him, like breathing. His bedroom was his sanctuary, and sanctuaries were not meant to be shared. The household ran like clockwork. Breakfast at 8. Meetings at 9. Dinner at 7. Everything precise, everything controlled. Vincent preferred it that way. Emotions were unpredictable. People were unreliable. But schedules? Schedules never disappointed you. And then Isabella arrived. She came on a Tuesday morning, carrying a single worn suitcase and wearing a dress that had been mended at the hem. Her eyes were large and uncertain, taking in the grandeur around her like a child seeing the ocean for the first time. She was young, probably 23 or 24, with soft features and a gentleness in her movements that seemed out of place in Vincent's rigid world. The head housekeeper, Signora Costello, showed her to the staff quarters and explained the rules. All of them, especially the one about the master's bedroom. Never go near it at night, Signora Costello said firmly. Never knock without permission. And under no circumstances are you to enter. Do you understand? Isabella nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. I understand. She adapted quickly to the rhythm of the villa. She learned to move quietly, to keep her eyes lowered, to work with the kind of delicate care that treated every object as if it were precious. When she dusted the antique vases in the great hall, her hands moved like butterfly wings. When she straightened the curtains in the library, she barely disturbed the air around them. But there was something Isabella hadn't told anyone. Something she'd kept secret her entire life because it had cost her jobs before, because people didn't understand, because it made her feel broken. Isabella was a sleepwalker. Since childhood, she drifted through the night like a spirit, her mind lost in dreams while her body moved through the waking world. Her mother used to find her curled up in strange places. The kitchen floor. The garden. Once, frightening on the front steps of their building, still fast asleep. She'd learned to hide it, to lock her bedroom door, to tie a bell to the handle so the sound would wake her. But here, in this vast villa with its endless corridors, she'd felt safe. The staff quarters were far from everywhere else. Surely, she thought, surely she'd be fine. She was wrong. It happened 3 weeks after she arrived. The villa was silent, wrapped in the heavy quiet of midnight. The other staff members slept soundly in their rooms. Vincent was in his study, reviewing contracts for a property acquisition in Rome, when exhaustion finally pulled him toward bed. Meanwhile, Isabella rose from her bed. Her eyes were half open but unseeing, glazed with the fog of dreams. Her bare feet made no sound on the cool tile floor as she drifted into the hallway. She moved with the strange certainty of the sleeping, her subconscious mind navigating paths she'd never consciously walked. She climbed the stairs to the upper floor, past the gallery of paintings, past the sitting room where Vincent sometimes took his evening coffee, down the corridor where moonlight painted silver squares on the floor. And then she stopped in front of a door. Vincent's door. The forbidden door. In her dream state, she didn't hesitate. Her hand found the handle. It turned easily. She slipped inside. Vincent's bedroom was dimly lit by the glow of the city below. He'd just climbed into bed, his mind still half on the contracts he'd been reading, when he heard it. The soft whisper of the door opening. The gentle brush of fabric against fabric. He turned his head sharply, body tensing. Someone was in his room. A figure approaching through the darkness. For a moment, his mind raced through possibilities. An intruder? But how? Security was everywhere. A staff member? But they all knew better. And then the figure reached the bed, and in the pale light, he saw her face. Isabella. She didn't speak. Didn't acknowledge him. Her expression was serene, peaceful, lost in whatever dream was guiding her. And then, as naturally as water flowing downhill, she climbed into the bed beside him. Vincent froze. Every muscle in his body locked. His mind screamed at him to wake her, to push her away, to call security. This was a violation of his most sacred rule. This was exactly what he'd spent years preventing. But then she settled against him. Her small body curled into his side, her head coming to rest on his chest. Her breathing was slow and even utterly peaceful. She fit there, he realized with shock. She fit against him like the missing piece of something he hadn't known was incomplete. And something happened. Something Vincent hadn't felt in so many years he'd forgotten what it was called. He felt warm. Not physically warm, though she was that too. But warm inside. In the hollow space behind his ribs where his heart had been beating alone for so long. The weight of her against him, the trust in her sleeping form, the simple human connection he'd denied himself. It cracked something open inside him. Slowly, carefully, as if afraid of breaking something fragile, Vincent wrapped one arm around her. His other hand came to rest lightly on her hair. He told himself he'd wake her in a moment. He told himself this was temporary, that morning would come and reality would reassert itself. But for now, just for now, he let himself feel it. The comfort of another person. The quiet joy of not being alone. He closed his eyes and, for the first time in years, Vincent Romano felt at peace. Morning arrived gently. Sunlight crept through the heavy curtains, turning the room golden. Isabella stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Vincent had been awake for an hour, watching her sleep, his mind racing through what this meant, what would happen, how the household would react. At precisely 8 o'clock, footsteps approached down the hallway. Vincent's breakfast was always delivered at 8. Always by Alessandro, the butler, accompanied by Signora Costello and whichever kitchen staff member was on morning duty. The knock came. 2 sharp raps. Vincent didn't answer. Another knock. More hesitant this time. Then Alessandro's voice, cautious through the door. "Sir? Breakfast." Still silence. Alessandro exchanged glances with Signora Costello. Vincent was never late. Never still asleep at 8. Something was wrong. He used his master key and pushed the door open. The breakfast tray nearly crashed to the floor. Signora Costello gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The young kitchen assistant went pale. There, in Vincent's bed, was Isabella, sleeping peacefully in his arms. His arm draped protectively around her shoulders. Their breathing synchronized like music. It was impossible. Unthinkable. The rule that governed the entire household, shattered in an instant. And Vincent was awake. Looking directly at them. Alessandro stammered. "Sir, we didn't cheese." Vincent's voice was calm. "Steady. Set the tray down." Alessandro obeyed with shaking hands. The kitchen assistant practically ran from the room. "Close the door on your way out," Vincent added. They left quickly. And then the villa exploded. Whispers flew through the corridors like wildfire. "Did you hear?" Isabella was in his bed. In his arms. He allowed it. He didn't send her away. After years of that rule, he broke it for her. Who is she? What does this mean? Is she his mistress now? Did she seduce him? Is he losing his mind? The staff gathered in tight clusters, voices hushed but urgent. Some were scandalized. Others were thrilled by the drama. A few were jealous. And many were simply confused, trying to understand how their entire understanding of Vincent Romano had shifted overnight. Back in the bedroom, Isabella began to wake. She stretched slightly, blinking against the morning light. And then she froze. This wasn't her room. This wasn't her narrow bed in the staff quarters. This was... Oh God! Her eyes went wide. She shot upright, her face flooding with horror. She was in Vincent's bedroom. In his bed. Next to him. "I'm so sorry," she gasped. I didn't mean. I would never." Vincent sat up slowly. His voice was gentle. "Isabella. Breathe." She could barely get air into her lungs. "I don't understand." "How did I?" "You were sleepwalking," he said. "You didn't know where you were." Tears sprang to her eyes. "I've ruined everything. You'll send me away." "I'm so sorry." "Please, I didn't mean." He reached out and took her hand. The touch stopped her spiral of panic. "Look at me," he said quietly. She did, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You haven't ruined anything," Vincent told her. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "You were asleep. This wasn't your fault. But your rule, everyone knows." "My rule," he interrupted, "was mine to break." Isabella stared at him, confused, terrified, overwhelmed. Vincent took a breath. This was harder than any business negotiation he'd ever conducted. Isabella, last night, when you were here, I felt something I haven't felt in a very long time. She waited, trembling. I felt like I wasn't alone. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Isabella's tears slowed. She looked at this powerful, untouchable man and saw something she'd never expected to see. Loneliness. Just like hers. I understand if you're afraid, Vincent continued. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. But I need you to know that you're safe here. With me. You haven't done anything wrong. Isabella's voice was barely a whisper. I've never felt safe with anyone before. Their eyes met. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet. But recognition. Two lonely people who'd somehow found each other in the darkness. The day ahead would be complicated. The household would buzz with questions. Boundaries would need to be discussed. But for this moment, in the golden morning light, Vincent and Isabella simply sat together. And neither of them felt quite so alone anymore. If you're feeling the emotion of this story, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps these heartwarming stories reach others who need to hear them. Let's continue. The villa didn't settle down after that morning. If anything, the gossip intensified. Every corridor seemed to hum with speculation. Every corner held a whispered conversation that stopped abruptly when Isabella appeared. She tried to work. She really did. But her hands trembled as she polished the silverware. Her mind wandered when she was supposed to be organizing the linen closet. And everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her. Judging. Wondering. Assuming. Two of the younger housemaids cornered her in the laundry room that afternoon. Their names were Chiara and Julia, and they'd never been particularly kind to Isabella even before all this. So, Chiara said, leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed. Is it true? Isabella kept her eyes on the sheets she was folding. Is what true? Don't play stupid. Were you really in his bed? Isabella's cheeks burned. I was sleepwalking. I didn't know where I was going. Julia laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. Sleepwalking. Right. And he just happened to let you stay. Did he touch you? Chiara pressed. Did you? Stop. Isabella's voice cracked, but she forced herself to stand straighter. You weren't there. You don't know what happened. So please don't make up stories. The two women exchanged glances. Something in Isabella's tone gave them pause. She wasn't being defensive or secretive. She was simply asking for respect. After a moment, they backed off. But Isabella knew the whispers wouldn't stop. Not yet. Vincent was having his own challenges. He sat in his study, trying to focus on the financial reports spread across his desk, but his mind kept drifting. To the way Isabella had felt beside him. To the peace he'd experienced. To the terror in her eyes this morning when she'd realized where she was. Alessandro knocked softly before entering. Sir, may I speak plainly? When have I ever stopped you, Alessandro? The butler shifted his weight. The household is unsettled. There are questions. Concerns about favoritism, about propriety. Vincent looked up, his gaze sharp. Do you believe I've lost my judgment? No, sir. Never. Then trust me. Alessandro bowed his head. Of course. He paused at the door. If I may add one observation, sir? She seems frightened. Not of you, but of disappointing you. After Alessandro left, Vincent sat back in his chair. Frightened of disappointing him. The thought bothered him more than he wanted to admit. That evening, as the sun began to set over Milan, Vincent went looking for Isabella. He found her in the gardens, tending to the roses with careful, gentle hands. She looked up as he approached, and he saw her tense. You don't need to be afraid of me, he said softly. I'm not afraid of you, she replied. Then more honestly, I'm afraid of what people think. Of what they're saying. Let them talk. But your reputation. My reputation, Vincent interrupted, is built on business decisions and property investments. Not on the opinions of housemaids. He stepped closer. Isabella, I want to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. She nodded, holding her breath. When you woke up this morning, after you understood what had happened, were you disappointed? The question surprised her. Disappointed? That it was my room you wandered into. That it was me you found. Isabella's eyes widened. No, I wasn't disappointed. She looked down at the roses, gathering courage. I was terrified that I'd ruined everything. But being there, with you, that part didn't feel wrong. Something in Vincent's chest loosened. Good. Because I need you to know something. He waited until she met his eyes. What happened last night changed something for me. You changed something for me. And I don't want to go back to the way things were before. What does that mean? She whispered. It means I'm asking for your trust. It means I want to protect you from the gossip and the judgment. It means, he paused, choosing his words carefully. It means I care what happens to you. Tears gathered in Isabella's eyes, but she was smiling. I care what happens to you too. They stood together in the fading light, not quite touching, but close enough to feel each other's warmth. And for the first time since she'd arrived at the villa, Isabella felt like she might actually belong somewhere. The next morning, Vincent made a decision. When breakfast was served, he didn't sit alone at the head of the long dining table as he always had. Instead, he had Alessandro set 2 places, side by side. When Isabella entered the dining room, summoned by a confused Signora Costello, she froze in the doorway. Vincent pulled out the chair next to his. Sit. I don't understand. Sit, he repeated more gently. She obeyed, her heart pounding. Every staff member in the room was staring. Signora Costello looked like she might faint. Alessandro was trying very hard to keep his face neutral. Vincent addressed the room, his voice carrying the authority that had built his empire. Isabella is under my protection. Anyone who disrespects her, questions her, or makes her uncomfortable will answer to me directly. Is that understood? Murmured acknowledgments rippled through the staff. Isabella felt her eyes burning with unshed tears. No one had ever stood up for her like this. No one had ever made her feel valued. After breakfast, as they walked through the gardens together, Isabella finally found her voice. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. They're going to talk even more now. Let them. He stopped walking and turned to face her. Isabella, I spent years building walls, protecting myself, keeping everyone at a distance. And I was miserable. His voice dropped. You walked through those walls without even trying. And somehow, impossibly, that made everything better. She looked up at him, this powerful man who was showing her his vulnerable heart. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. How to be, whatever this is. Neither do I, Vincent said. But I'd like to figure it out. Together. Days turned into weeks. The household slowly adjusted to the new dynamic. Signora Costello, after getting over her initial shock, became fiercely protective of Isabella. Alessandro started teaching her about the villa's history and art collection, treating her like a student rather than a subordinate. Even Chiara and Giulia softened, though they remained wary. Vincent and Isabella fell into a rhythm. Morning walks in the garden. Quiet dinners on the terrace. Long conversations about everything and nothing. He told her about the business deal that had nearly destroyed him. She told him about growing up poor, about her mother's sacrifices, about her shame over the sleepwalking. It's not something to be ashamed of, Vincent said firmly. It brought you to me. That was an accident. Was it? He smiled. Maybe the best things in life are accidents. But their peace was about to be tested. One afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up to the villa. Out stepped a woman who radiated confidence and beauty. Her name was Francesca Martinelli, a business associate of Vincent's. She was intelligent, sophisticated, and clearly interested in more than just business. Isabella, who was arranging flowers in the entrance hall, felt her stomach drop as she watched Francesca embrace Vincent. The hug lasted just a beat too long. Francesca's hand lingered on his arm. Vincent, darling, it's been too long, Francesca purred. Isabella's hands tightened on the vase she was holding. The meeting took place in Vincent's study. Isabella brought coffee, trying to keep her composure as Francesca's sharp eyes assessed her from head to toe. So sweet, Francesca said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. You've trained your staff well, Vincent. Isabella isn't just staff, Vincent replied, his tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. Francesca's eyebrows rose. Oh, how interesting. After she left, Isabella found herself on the terrace, staring out at the city. She felt small suddenly. Insignificant. What was she compared to women like Francesca? Women who belonged in Vincent's world? You're thinking too much, Vincent's voice came from behind her. She's beautiful, Isabella said quietly. And smart. And she fits in your world in a way I never will. Vincent moved to stand beside her. You're right. She does fit in my world. The cold, lonely world I lived in before you. He took her hand. But you fit in the world I want to live in now. Isabella turned to look at him, tears shining in her eyes. I don't want sophistication and polish, Vincent continued. I don't want someone who plays games or calculates every word. I want honesty. Warmth. You. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. You, Isabella. She broke. The tears fell, and she leaned into him, letting him hold her. I love you, she whispered. I didn't mean to. I tried not to. But I do. Vincent's arms tightened around her. I love you too. More than I thought possible. More than I knew how to. They stood there as the sun set, wrapped in each other, finally saying the words that had been building for weeks. That evening, Vincent gathered the entire household staff. They assembled in the great hall, confused and curious. I want to make an announcement, Vincent said, his hand finding Isabella's. Isabella is no longer employed as staff. She will be staying here as my partner. My equal. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Signora Costello smiled. Alessandro nodded approvingly. Anyone who cannot respect this is free to seek employment elsewhere, Vincent continued. But I hope you'll all welcome her as part of this household's family. There was a moment of silence. Then Signora Costello began to clap. Alessandro joined her. One by one, the staff followed until the hall was filled with applause. Isabella felt tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. Smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. That night, they sat together in Vincent's study, curled up on the leather sofa. Isabella's head rested on his shoulder. His arm was wrapped around her waist. Are you sure about this? She asked. About us? I've never been more sure of anything. Your family might not approve. Your business partners. Isabella. He tilted her chin up so she was looking at him. You walked into my bedroom, literally, and changed my entire life. You made me feel human again. You made me want to feel human again. Nothing else matters. She smiled, her heart so full it ached. What happens now? Now! Vincent kissed her forehead gently. Now we live. Really live. Together. Months passed. The villa transformed. It was still beautiful, still grand, but now it was warm. There was laughter in the hallways. Isabella learned to run the household, not as a servant, but as its heart. Vincent learned to soften, to open up, to let joy in. They traveled to Rome, to Venice, to the countryside. They hosted dinner parties where Isabella charmed his business associates with her genuine kindness. They spent quiet evenings reading together in the library. And at night, Isabella no longer slept alone in the staff quarters. She slept in Vincent's arms, in his bedroom, exactly where she belonged. One evening, as they stood on the terrace watching the lights of Milan twinkle below, Vincent pulled her close. Do you remember that first night? He asked. When I sleepwalked into your room. How could I forget? I was so angry at first. So shocked. The rule I'd held sacred for years broken. And now, he smiled. Now I think it was fate. You walked through walls I didn't even know how to break down myself. Isabella turned to face him fully. You saved me too, you know. Gave me a place to belong. Made me feel worthy. You've always been worthy. They kissed as the stars emerged overhead. Two people who'd been so lonely, so lost, who'd found each other in the most unexpected way. The household staff, watching from the windows, smiled. Even Chiara and Giulia had to admit it was romantic. Who would have thought? Chiara murmured. That a sleepwalking girl would capture the heart of Vincent Romano? Giulia shook her head. It's like something from a fairy tale. Maybe, Signora Costello said, joining them at the window. Or maybe it's just what happens when two people are brave enough to let their walls down. In the months and years that followed, the story of Vincent and Isabella became something of a legend in Milan. The billionaire who let no woman into his sanctuary, who finally opened his heart to a gentle soul who wandered there by accident. They married in the villa's gardens, surrounded by friends and the staff who'd become family. Alessandro gave Isabella away. Signora Costello cried through the entire ceremony. And as they danced their first dance under strings of lights, Isabella whispered, Thank you. For what? For not sending me away that morning. For giving us a chance. Vincent pulled her closer. Thank you for walking through my door. For showing me that being alone isn't the same as being safe. They built a life together. A real life, full of love and laughter and yes, occasional arguments, because that's what real love includes. But through it all, they never forgot that first night. The night everything changed. Years later, when people asked Isabella how she'd won Vincent's heart, she would smile and say, I walked into his life while I was sleeping. And when I woke up, I found I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And Vincent, when asked the same question, would simply pull her close and say, She reminded me how to feel. And that was worth more than any rule I'd ever made. Their love story began with broken rules and sleepwalking accidents. It grew through trust and patience and choosing each other every day. And it lasted because they both understood something important. The strongest walls are the ones you choose to tear down yourself. In the end, the villa on the hills of Milan was no longer cold or silent. It was filled with warmth, with love, with the sound of two hearts that had found their home in each other. And they lived happily, truly happily, ever after. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If it touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your country, your city. I'd love to know this story reached you. See you in the next story, and remember, sometimes the best things in life happen when we least expect them.